You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
You're listening to Mission Log the Orville, an episode-by-episode discussion of the adventures of the crew of the USS Orville.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Mission Log the Orville, and you're going to join us as we follow the crew of the USS Orville through a Class 2 spatial fold and investigate the episode Into the Fold for meanings, morals, messages, and to see if it aligns with the Roddenberry Star Trek philosophy. I'm Jessica Lynn Verdi.
And my name is Mike Richards. Mission Log the Orville is a conversation that depends on your participation. Share your thoughts, ideas, and tell us what we missed at ML_the Orville on Twitter, Mission Log Pod on Facebook, or email at missionlog-theorville@roddenberry.com. If you're watching this on Roddenberry YouTube channel, you can also hit like or subscribe. And remember, we may use your comments on an upcoming episode. Now here's Jessica Lynn Verdi with the recap.
Oh my goodness. Wish me luck. Into the Fold. Going on a family vacation apparently does not get any easier in the future, especially when it comes to wrangling an anxious tween and a disaffected teenager. Claire, Dr. Finn, is ready to take her kids to a play planet, but as they're loading on the shuttle, they learn that their pilot, John Lamar, will not be taking them, but Isaac will be. Crap. Act 1. Well, a family vacation has turned into an interrogation now that Isaac is aboard, who has an opportunity to observe family dynamics up close. Ty and Marcus, Claire's children, are doing what children do best: fighting. Isaac sees Claire's parenting as inadequate, with her being unable to stop them from fighting over a game that Marcus wasn't supposed to bring in the first place. The external turbulence of the shuttle begins to match the emotional turbulence when they encounter an uncharted spatial fold that causes a gravitational shear. Just as Isaac attempts to course correct, Ty steals the game from Marcus, throws it away, and it hits the control panel, causing the shuttle to head directly into the fold.
Bravo.
Thank you. Are we there yet? Well, wherever they were, they're now 1,000 light years away in uncharted space. Oh, and the ship's outer hull is very badly damaged. Landing the shuttle is imperative before it breaks apart. Luckily, a moon close to their location has a breathable atmosphere. As the shuttle careens towards the ground, Isaac commands Claire to go to the back of the shuttle to help stabilize the hydraulics. I think that's what he said. She accomplishes the goal, but they are still headed for impact. She buckles herself in just in time for the shuttle to hit a peak of a mountain, fracturing the shuttle and separating Claire from the kids and Isaac. Marcus has suffered a dislocated kneecap, and Isaac repairs the damage by popping his knee back into place without missing a beat.
Yeah,
Claire,
he did.
He fixed the program. Claire is seen unconscious on the ground and dragged away by an unknown being. Act 2. Isaac triangulates where Claire most likely landed, leaves Marcus with a weapon in order to increase their chance of survival without him by 24%, and sets off to find Claire. Despite happening upon the wreckage, Claire is not to be found. In a truly horrific moment, Marcus and Ty are descended upon by frightening humanoids that attempt to abduct Ty. Isaac has returned just in time to shoot that monster man away. Meanwhile, upon the docked Orville, upgrades are going perfectly boringly. The crew becomes aware that Dr. Finn and the kids never arrived at their destination. They can put upgrades on hold, but the navigational array is literally in pieces on the floor, so Lamar has to triangulate their whereabouts the old-fashioned way, with star charts. The bickering kids prove to be a distraction to the highly superior Isaac, to the point that he resorts to quoting Claire perfectly in an attempt to make them stop, despite criticizing her effectiveness before. The dysonium is depleted in the shuttle. They can't do a better search for their mom, nor can they send a distress signal to the Orville. After a suggestion from Marcus, Isaac is able to determine that there is dysonium on the planet because there are trace amounts of it on the hull where the shuttle impacted the mountain. Claire awakes in a cell and a figure opens the door, revealing her captor. He delivers food to her without answering any of her questions properly, and despite telling her that she's in a safe place, Claire feels anything but. Act 3. In the morning, Isaac and the kids head to find Dysonium, and yet another argument over the video game prompts Isaac to take it from Marcus, throw it in the air, and disintegrate it with his weapon. Boom. Isaac takes this opportunity to tell Marcus that the way he treats his mother would suggest that he doesn't care about her. Literally replaying back the words that he said to her just yesterday. All of a sudden, Isaac senses that someone is approaching them. A group of sickly humanoids surround them and demand that Isaac hand over the children. Isaac wastes no time to stun them. And as they study their assailants, Isaac concludes that they are sickly and malnourished, that they are most likely wanting the children so that they could eat them. Frightened, Ty grabs Isaac's hand. Isaac would rather not have his hand held, but Marcus asks Isaac to just let Ty hold his hand. Claire's captor returns to find that she has not eaten the food he has so generously given her. He introduces himself as Drogon, saying that it was lucky he had found her. A biological weapon put into the water from a war years ago caused millions to die, and the very few that survived mostly turned to cannibalism because resources are scarce. Drogon's foresight, food, and water storage prevented him from taking that route, and despite any of Claire's requests, including asking for her communicator to be returned to her, he only continues to insist that he is her only hope for survival. Isaac, Marcus, and Ty must cross the river in order to continue their journey. Wait, what did we just hear about water? What was it?
I don't think. With poison?
Oh, Ty falls in, but is apparently undamaged by Isaac's surmisation. Act 4. The Orville finds the spatial fold, realizing that the shuttle's ion trail leads right into it. Despite not knowing where it will take them, Mercer commands the Orville to go into the fold.
Boom. On
the other side, they are in uncharted space and find no distress signal. The closest star system reveals 62 habitable moons, but there's no way to search for Claire, Isaac, and the kids except for one world at a time. Isaac encourages the children to sleep by telling them a bedtime story like Mom. Ty asks for Isaac to read Peter Rabbit just like his mom, and is able to simulate Dr. Finn perfectly, putting the children at ease. As the story continues, Claire opens a metal shield to the outside, and we see that she is many stories high. Do you remember when she told Isaac that she was afraid of heights in If the Stars Should Appear?
I do remember that.
Oh, and the next morning, Ty wakes up, and he's not doing so well. Claire, running out of option, inflicts a wound on herself and cries out for help from her captor. She needs antibiotics from her shuttle, that if she dies, he will be alone again. As he leaves, she goes to find her communicator and is able to finally contact her kids and Isaac. Marcus takes this opportunity to talk to his mother and apologize for his behavior, to which Claire says that when people love each other, sometimes they say things that they don't mean, but that it's all okay. She makes a break for it, attacking Drogon as he returns. Just try and stop a mother from getting to her children. Claire makes her way to the crash site and is able to get a blood sample from one of the infected before rendezvousing. Isaac activated a distress beacon with the new Dysonium, but the Dysonium isn't strong enough, so they could only send out a blip, which may not be enough to get the Orville's attention. With the sample of the infected blood, Claire could create a cure, but would be unable to do so unless she were aboard the Orville. Isaac reaches for Claire's hand, perhaps unsure of how it will be helpful, but eases Claire's sense of despair about her dying son. The blip has worked, and the Orville is on course to rescue. Biosigns reveal Claire, the kids, and Isaac, and also dozens of hungry human eaters descending upon them. Isaac, who is standing watch, is beyond outnumbered. He stuns as many as he can, and Marcus offers to go and help. After a few missed shots, Marcus gains control over the weapon and is able to help Isaac. But just when it seems unlikely that they'll be able to hold them back, rescue arrives and scatters the attackers. Aboard the ship, Claire has found a cure, and Ty is recovering. Once Claire is able to synthesize more, Kelly suggests perhaps delivering the cure to the moon if they'd be willing to accept their help. Isaac briefed Ed about what happened, but before Claire can deliver her end of the story, she goes to Isaac herself to thank him for taking such good care of her children. With one final observation, Isaac shares that he's become quite fond of her unruly, disrespectful children. And as Claire puts it, he's now one of the family, aka in the fold.
Very nice.
Oh.
So I was writing the intro, and I was like, the spatial fold, where they go into the fold. Oh, I get it now.
You get it now.
Yeah, they went into the fold, didn't they?
They went into the fold. They sure
Yeah.
went into the fold. Yes.
So looks like we made it through that recap. And with that poisoned water, let's just say it's a good thing that they didn't have to make it through the rain.
Oh, no.
But
Are these going to be
job.
things, things I'm not going to know anything about?
But my God, we need to get better people. I'm just kidding. We have great people.
We need to get better people.
We have the best people.
It really does make me sad, though, for whoever Ed Mercer is talking about when he says that about his crew. Because the guy spills soy sauce on his pants, right?
Yeah, and he put that in the damage report.
Yes. I spilled soy sauce on my pants, sir.
My God, we need to get better people.
We need better people. Yeah.
So it's probably a good thing I was not doing the recap tonight, because if I did, I probably would have tried to work as many Barry Manilow songs into the recap as possible. So
Missed opportunity.
Listeners, you have all been spared that. So you can thank Jessica for writing this week's recap.
Hold on, though. Okay, so let me see if I can go backward. Just as the Orville crew goes to rescue Claire, Isaac, and the kids, it looks like we made it. Okay. Despite Isaac being unable to show human emotions and only having 2 lights for eyes, he can't even smile without Claire. Even now, as the hungry human flesh eaters descend upon them, I write the songs. And you know what? It's clear that maybe Claire, though unable to find a human mate, it might be ready to take a chance again with Isaac.
I am welling up in tears right now. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see that I am emotionally touched in more ways than one. But I agree, Barry Manilow is an underappreciated genius. As all of those songs, from Mandy to I Made It Through the Rain, released between 1974 and about 1981 or 82, just string after string after string of soft rock big hits. So definitely do think he is a
41?
genius. 41 number one hits, is that what you're saying?
No, that's when he started writing, was in 41.
Oh, no, from 1971. I meant to say from 1971
I
until
may
about
have misheard you.
81 or so were kind of his big years, although he's been a prolific songwriter and singer for decades.
It totally tracks that Seth MacFarlane likes Barry Manilow, though. Do you know what I mean? That is not surprising to me.
And that he would use this platform to further the influence of said Barry Manilow.
Seth MacFarlane has an agenda, and it's getting us to take crooners more seriously.
Crooners. I love it. This episode is directed by Brannon Braga. No introduction needed there. He also wrote it with Andre Bormanis. And Brannon was very uncomfortable writing comedy, did take a stab at writing some jokes into the episode. They were all removed and replaced by staff writers. And as a result, we got a much more seriously toned episode, a little bit darker than what we've seen before, with still a few comedic moments, but it was definitely just sort of peppering the mix of this episode. Andre Bormanis, I had not heard of up until now, and that is probably a direct look at my lack of Star Trek knowledge. I should have probably known who this guy was. So I looked into his background. Masters of Science in Space Technology and Policy. He got that through George Washington University from a NASA grant. He became a scientific consultant for Star Trek Voyager in 1995 and became a full-time writer and producer on Enterprise. He wrote and produced Threshold, The 11th Hour, Legend of the Seeker, and Disney XD's Tron Uprising. He worked as a scientific consultant on the Fox National Geographic production of Cosmos, which is also a Brannon Braga, Seth MacFarlane joint that we had previously covered on this show. And writer and co-executive producer of the National Geographic miniseries Mars, which was part documentary, part sort of docudrama, which was excellent and very, very kind of hard science fiction there. And if you want to learn more about Tron Uprising, you can check out the Sci-Fi 5 podcast for May 20th, 2012 on the Roddenberry Podcast Network. And that was narrated by Star Trek Enterprise's John Billingsley.
I was going to say, I don't think it was me.
Nope, this one was not you.
Great. Just like you shouldn't feel bad for knowing Andre Bormanis, there are so many things to know on the planet that I don't even know what I've done and what I haven't done. So, like, now this is the opportunity for you to learn about this person.
Correct. And I may have. I mean, I'm getting ready to kind of start learning things again that I've already forgotten. So there may have been a chance that at one point I knew exactly who he was, and now I just get to relearn it again.
Totally, yeah. As you age, I hear that's what happens.
Yeah, you just kind of keep relearning old things. So Barry Manilow was not the only music in this episode. Joel McNeely did the score. Mm-hmm. There were 5 new songs, and they are all included in the season 1 soundtrack.
Oh,
but that little bit of trivia and background on kind of the key players is just a one, I guess, small piece of how much Star Trek horsepower and how much entertainment knowledge and experience is being thrown at this show week after week after week. If it's not Seth writing, it's Brannon, or they're bringing somebody like Andre Bormanis, who is involved also as a co-producer of, supervising producer, I believe, of the Orville. And guest stars, Brian Thompson as Drogen, Star Trek veteran, played a Klingon at two different points.
Crazy. You can tell because he's so tall, too.
Yeah. A matter of honor, which it was not Code of Honor, so don't hold that against him. It was a matter of honor, kind of the first one of the Klingon episodes, and also Star Trek Generations. He was in there. He played a role in Deep Space Nine's Rules of Acquisition, the guy that kind of introduced the Federation to the Dominion to try to get, I don't know, I think it was like 100 casks of like Boone's Farm apple wine or something like that, if I remember right. It was some kind of...
I have no idea. All these words, even though I know Star Trek, all of these words like, what?
Yeah, some kind of, I forget, it was some kind of wine or juice or something like that they only had in the Gamma Quadrant that they could not get back home, and they wanted it. And he also played 3 episodes in Enterprise as Admiral Valdor, a Romulan admiral, excuse me. And if we have any Star Trek Nemesis fans out there, that's great. Good for you. The Valdor class Warbird was that's great.
That says it all.
Every movie is somebody's favorite and somebody's least favorite. So if somebody's favorite Star Trek movie is Nemesis, that's great. That is great. The Valdor class Warbird was actually a little tip of the hat to Admiral Valdor from Enterprise. So yeah, lots of Star Trek horsepower being thrown at these shows. So I think we can definitely say that this show is very much an attempt to build out that style of storytelling, that type of universe.
And it is odd to me when I think about it. Like, basically, he is doing Star Trek, right? Seth MacFarlane is doing Star Trek. And you, in one way, you could be like, that is crazy. You are just basically ripping off this show. Because, like, imagine if we had Star Wars, but it wasn't Star Wars, but it might as well have been Star Wars.
But it was called Battle Beyond the Stars.
Correct. 100%. But if I take a step back and think about all the CSIs that exist and all the procedurals that exist and all the soap operas that exist, they're the same flippin' show over and over again.
Oh, yeah.
With interesting story. I'm not saying I watch Grey's Anatomy. I know what I watch. But if you want to have the argument that this is just Star Trek all over again, who cares? If you like this type of storytelling, you're maybe getting some similarities to Next Generation and beyond, but you also are getting some fresh, awesome takes. Like, you're exactly right that this episode was heavy, and boy, did I appreciate that. I totally appreciated that about this episode. Yeah,
I did too. Well, like you mentioned, Claire was taking the boys to a play planet. I don't think they ever named it. I don't think it was Wrigley's Pleasure Planet. I don't think it was the Shore Leave Planet.
It was a Boreas Regal or a Boreas something.
They did, yeah. They named the planet, but I don't think yes, you're exactly right. They did name it. But would you rather go to that? Or would you rather go to Medieval Battle Camp in the environmental simulator?
Oh, it depends on the week.
It kind of does. I could definitely see both. But if you had to... If you had to choose this week, what would you choose?
Oh, I think personally, Probably the battle simulator.
Yeah, I kind of would too.
I
Yeah.
think that's what I would go for. I mean, especially because like you're also going to get worked out. You know what I mean? Like I need a workout more than I need to like screw off and have some fun right now.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that recent events have caused me to try to stay in more than I normally do, but if I had an environmental simulator in the house or on my ship, I'd probably do that rather than head out somewhere.
I mean, my phone, I basically, the most intimate relationship I have right now is with my phone. So it's not like it's much different.
I get it. I really do. So Dr. Finn has some quality help stepping up to help her out. Dr. Parley is going to be working full time.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Did we get to see a lot of Dr.
We did
Parley?
not.
We did not. Kind of reminded me of Dr. Solar in Next Gen, who appeared in one season 2 episode, and she got mentioned.
Oh my God.
Again during the remainder of the series, but I don't think we ever saw Dr. Solar ever again. And I dare I say, I'd be very surprised if we ever see Dr. Parley, or even hear of her. Or
More
him,
than likely
or them,
won't. We
ever
won't
again.
We won't probably ever again unless there is a B shift that we'll never need to know about. I think I mentioned the last episode that I've been rewatching Community, and in season 6, feel however you will about it, they are like trying to like find new cast members.
Yeah.
And they reuse an actress to become like a main character in the season 6 who appeared as an IT lady in season 5. And then in season 6, they talk about firing that useless IT lady that she was. It's adorable little callback to,
Yeah.
yes, we know it was played by the same actress, but you know, you just sometimes that parlay is there for a reason.
I love Community, and I'm all in on season 6, which, if I remember right, was only available on Yahoo's screen.
At the time, yeah.
At the time, yeah.
And now it's all on Hulu and Netflix. So
Yeah.
I've been rewatching all the episodes over and over again, and it's just
And
so
we
good.
were watching it live, or not live, but as released on Yahoo screen for the last season.
Wow.
And rather than jump into the what your pitch would be for season 7 of Community, because I know what mine would be. Claire she needed a pilot.
Yes.
Yeah, it sounded like maybe they were looking at John to be the pilot,
I
John
have
Lamar.
the same question you have here, so I can see your notes.
Okay.
And my question is like, what is she so upset about it not being? Well, she's not pissed that it's not John. She's pissed that it's Isaac.
Yeah, so I think maybe she was used to the idea of it being John. You know, that she probably was okay with that. Isaac, we all know, has a superiority complex. You know, they kind of introduced him as such in the first episode. The Kalan think they are superior to biological life forms, I think as they put it.
Yeah.
So she probably knew that would be kind of a buzzkill.
Well, she also does say that she was looking forward to Lamar wrangling the kids.
Wrangling, yeah. I was going to say ride and herd, but I think she did say wrangling.
Well, essentially that.
Yeah.
On the rides and stuff. Like, I think that meant he was kind of going to be on the trip with them to some extent. And I think she looked forward to having, like, another human there to... to put them in order too, because they're probably not going to act like A-hats, in front of Lamar, or maybe they will.
But they were acting like A-hats in front of
Because Isaac's not a real person as far as they're concerned. And, this will, this is something I might talk about when we get to the morals, messages, and meanings, or like deeper thoughts about the episode.
Yeah, it just seemed like they're, oh, go ahead.
Oh, well, just that I'm sure also Claire was looking forward to letting her 2 young boys hang out with another male too.
Yeah, with kind of a functional adult human.
Yeah,
not necessarily role model, but somebody who could help her out.
Yeah, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. When you're a single parent, and we learn that she is a single parent willingly, you have to be aware of the people that you invite into your life are going to leave an influence on your children. So it's clear that she was welcome of Lamar's influence that he was going to have on the kids.
Yeah, totally. it just seemed kind of like a very quick, and I know there's just a limited amount of time to tell these stories. They got, 42 minutes on network TV.
Right.
The Hulu episodes are supposed to be longer or shorter, just depending on however long they take to tell, but they're saying that some of them might go up to an hour.
Yeah, I love that about TV nowadays. It's like, we're just going to tell a story, and we're not going to worry about commercial breaks because you're in, like you're buckled in. Yeah. I actually find now, especially with streaming, I can tell when things have to happen in episodes if they're still writing for commercial breaks, because I'm like, well, we don't have any more time to focus on that, so they have to like fast forward through this problem in order to get to the end of the show. So
yeah, and I think that's why the eye roll and then crap to round out
totally right.
Round out the prologue. Referring to him as a talking hubcap. I always thought of Isaac as more of a walking chrome toaster. I'm just kidding. No, I'm kidding. Either one of those things, if it's a sentient life form, I don't feel like being that belittling is really super appropriate.
Yeah, but he was judging her.
Yes.
And so I'm not saying it's fair, but we've got two people that we got two beings that aren't at their best. She's under stress, and he's not reading the social cues very well.
So maybe offer a little bit of grace?
I think for both of them, because Isaac is annoying as all get out. I can see that. I can see her feeling that way.
Yeah, I can too. And you know what? We actually come back to that later on with that offering grace for one another. And we'll chat about that more when Claire speaks to Marcus about their last words together. So that, I think, was actually probably a really good bit of foreshadowing.
Yeah, you're totally right.
Now that we sussed that out, I'm glad we had that conversation.
Great.
So a little bit of fact checking when Captain Mercer was giving away all the secrets of the Orville to Captain Priya Levesque. He told her that the Orville could go about or maybe more than 10 light years per hour. So in order to go 1,000 light years, a little quick math, now try to follow me.
Okay, I already am not.
That would take 100 hours to go 1,000 light years. 100 hours is 4 days and 4 hours. Okay. So Isaac said it would take, I think he said 2 weeks or a couple of weeks. I think he said 2 weeks.
3 weeks or something?
Yeah, for the Orville to reach them. So I think that's probably like a top speed, but it's not really like a sustainable speed. But either way, it's kind of within, I'd say, an order of magnitude or, kind of spitting distance of, being consistent with what Captain told Priya Levesque, although he might have been bragging a little bit. He might have been embellishing.
He could have been. And I think this is also sometimes when you get different people writing different episodes, you may just be missing that one piece of key information, right? Like if you have someone that's consistently writing it by themselves, they may go, but at their top speed, they'll be here in 7 days if they even know where to go.
Yeah.
Like
if
that.
If they can
would
even
be the line.
Maintain a top speed for that long, man, that could fry the quantum drive. Who knows?
I think you're totally right, though. That
and then you look at the dysonium, per gallon, but dysonium per light year. You go that fast, man. You might just be shooting dysonium out the quantum drive without really going, without really being most efficient. So
in reality, we just need a lot more spatial folds.
We do. That would be the key. Sort of a real theoretical thing. If space-time can fold, then you can travel great distances.
Well, Dune is completely founded on that.
Right.
But they don't explain it scientologically. But they do have guild navigators, which are able to fold space in their mind in order to chart the best route in order to not run into a star.
So I have not read Dune, and I need to.
I'm not going to shame you. I'm not going to.
No, don't shame me. I'm just you seem interested in it, and I've got several other friends who have. My best friend said he reads it about once a decade.
Yeah, I would say Dune is my Star Wars, even though my Star Wars is my Star Wars and my Star Trek is my Star Trek. But I think I would say I love Dune the most, probably. And it's not a perfect work, but it does. When you talk about Dune being like the grandfather of science fantasy, it makes a lot of sense why that is. Like it really kicks off the entire genre. But yeah, they do talk about folding in space, and that's what this was reminiscent of for me.
Fine, I'll read it. Plus, I'm going to have a lot more time on my hands coming up, so
Great.
That's even better.
Great.
As a sci-fi fan, what do you think? Just in general, we're 8 episodes in right now.
Yeah.
What do you think of the special effects, the ship scenes, the shuttle scenes, the in general, and then maybe kind of specifically in this episode?
It's a good question. I think nothing has pulled me out of it and made me think too hard about the fact that I'm watching a TV show. I think everything's been like, you can see the CGI. It's not that you can't, although I do love that they have a practical shuttle bay with a practical shuttle. And so they do have a lot of practical sets that are really very good, I would say. Like, again, it seems like they're like, the set and the design is like on the minimalist side of things. The minimalist, practical, and like they also love primary colors, especially because that's what like their uniforms are. I guess I'm not looking for a problem because I'm not seeing a problem with the CGI or like the effects that they have.
Yeah, I think in general the shots of the Orville are beautiful. I think many of those are using the model with practical effects, so you get great light and shadowing and those kind of things. They reused one shot specifically many times where it's the Orville sort of on an angle, kind of in a bank, coming at you and then flying away, and I think that shot looks great. I think the shots with the shuttle look a little bit less great, but I really thought the sequence of the shuttle crashing into the moon, that crash landing, was exceptionally well done, with the exception of the shuttle sort of breaking in half and losing Dr. Finn out of the back half. But I thought that whole scene was done well, very well. The too low terrain warning is something that you would hear in a commercial airliner. It's called ground proximity warning system.
Whoa.
And you will hear that if one of several parameters are exceeded, whether it's sink rate or too low to the terrain or too low without landing gear down or flaps extended. Those kind of things cause this ground proximity warning system to go off, and too low terrain is one of those.
I thought that was really funny to have in the future too, but at the same time it also upped the stakes of the situation. So that's interesting that it actually it struck me as something that would happen now, and I was curious if that they would still have that happen in the future. Yeah,
you would think it possibly in the future the machine would just take over and pull up for you. But with a hydraulic problem that they were having, that Dr. Finn, I think, fixed.
She fixed, but I think it was
sort of too late. Then they were out of power, and you couldn't control the thing, and then they hit the thing, and then the thing crashed. But anyway, I thought that sequence was done very, very well overall. And overall, I think the special effects are good enough that at times I think they look gorgeous, and at other times they're just sort of, just kind of go with it, and they don't take me out of the story. They're just believable enough to enable the story to be told. Which,
if the story is like what I learned with like filmmaking, the most important thing in filmmaking is sound, and we'll forgive we'll forgive the camera, we'll forgive design stuff. I mean, unless it's just egregious, but as long as we can hear things and it sounds really believable, and we'll be able to watch pretty much anything. But you're totally right. Nothing has taken me out of it, and it's so interesting that you say that it does look. It did look weird when the shuttle broke apart and Dr. Finn is like, you could see her green shape flying away. When I first watched the episode, I had to rewind it and I was like, did she just go with the ship? Like what I realized they had to do was make it really clear as possible that she broke apart.
Yes.
Because I missed it the first time around. And it was important that they were as clear as possible. So I think that probably contributes to why it's not like the cleanest shot that they have.
Yeah, they had to kind of break away from what they were doing to show the ship impact, crack, split
and that she's gone.
And that she's gone. So yeah. I think it was a necessary shot, but just the sort of the closeness and the speed of the shot, the detail of that shot made it harder to execute.
We could have just had a close up on her pulling away. Like I don't know. It was an interesting choice to have, but at the same time, it was horrifying that she's getting separated from her kids.
Yes.
Like, and she. I don't know if Penny Johnson Gerald is a mom. I'm sure she may be, because she is given it. She is given how I feel a mom would be reacting in these moments. So, when she's crying after them, after like that impact, it's woof, tough.
She is definitely Mama Bear in this episode, and we'll talk more about that later, I'm sure. And you said no kids, right? Does this episode make you want to have kids?
I am just one of those people who's like open to like what the universe has in store for me.
Sure.
And right now, the universe does not have children in store for me.
Okay.
I will say this whole episode really was difficult for me because it really made me have to come to terms with just how awful I was as a teenager to my mother, and even as a young adult. So
yeah,
I don't know that I don't need a young Jessica running around in my life.
When I told my dad stories of my son as a toddler, 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old, I would just see him. He would light up. My dad would just light up with satisfaction that all
I
this
told
karma
you
was
so,
coming
Mike.
back on me.
Oh,
So
my mother would say that. She goes, "One day you'll understand."
I love my kids. Did not. I think things would have definitely played out differently if they were, different ages, different, different family dynamic. But I'm glad they are the age they are now, and not the age that these kids were.
Hormones are a lot.
Yeah. So the video game hit the control panel, as you so articulately put in your recap.
Sure.
Was that Ty's fault for throwing it, Marcus's fault for bringing the game, or Claire's fault for not making sure, or for not following through on the game stays on the Orville?
I think none of the above.
Okay.
I mean, Marcus is at fault. Marcus is being really irresponsible with a younger kid, who's played by Kai Werner, or Werner. He studied at the acting school that I used to work at, and and he's a sweet tea. So his name is Kai. He plays Ty, and he's just killing it. They're both killing it. But if we look at just like Marcus as Marcus is written, Marcus is being a little crap. I would say it's okay. I take it back. Marcus is the jerk. Marcus needs to chill the F out.
He does.
Do you agree, or what do you think?
Well, in order of responsibility, not that's the tangent we should be going down. I would blame Dr. Finn first, Marcus second, and Ty third.
But how can you blame Dr. Finn for getting a teenager to commit to her will?
She said that game stays here. And
yes.
He was like, "Come on, Mom."
She had no control over him from the beginning.
Well, Isaac took care of it.
That's true. It's true. She definitely could have folded it away for sure into the fold.
Could have thrown it into the fold.
She could have thrown it into the fold.
But man, here we are. We're talking about Penny Johnson Gerald and her motherly responsibility to follow through on her threats. But what about her acting in this episode? Did you get
she's killing it, man.
The scenes with Drojan in his swanky high-rise apartment, where she played this perfect combination that has to be challenging. I don't know the first thing about acting other than as a fan, but she was able to play terrified and defiant at the same time in a way that for me was so believable. Mm-hmm. She was standing up to her captor, and you could tell how afraid she was all at once. Mm-hmm. Is that hard?
I think women have to walk that line often, just walking down the street sometimes. That they have to be strong, and also are afraid of being a victim. And I know that more and more men are becoming, the good men are becoming aware that that's the daily experience of a woman. I'm not saying that that makes it easier to act it. I'm just saying that that's a world that we know how to exist in. And then add the added layer of she has no idea what's going on with her children. I think what Penny Johnson-Gerald is doing really well is accessing a really, she's allowing herself to access a very real emotion, and she does it so well that we're able to empathize with her and like go on that ride with her. I think, I don't know if you're asking, are you going to ask this if this is an Isaac episode or a Penny episode or a Claire episode?
I was kind of wondering about that. I mean, what do you think? Was this more of an Isaac episode or hers?
I think it's hers.
Okay.
I think it's hers. Because I think we were talking about, I think I mentioned before how we're kind of going down the list of each main character and how they deal with crisis. Like we saw Kelly get captured.
Command Performance with Alara Katan?
That one. Lamar, go to potentially, getting
jiggy with Mela Griffindon.
Have we had Gordon's episode yet?
I think Chris and Devin.
There we go.
With Krill.
Yeah, that's fair. So I think right now you're not wrong that this is like a two-hander, because we're also seeing Isaac learn human real quick.
Sure.
And we are learning to empathize with Isaac as well. But I don't think the show has as big of an impact if we can't get an actress to really allow us in on the journey that she took us on.
And a masterful job of doing that. And
totally.
there's no doubt that there is experiences that I don't share because of who I am and the experience that I have had, and getting to hear that other perspective is so valuable for me.
I think most people I think when we are pushed to our brink and we are set to protect something else other than ourselves, there is an inner strength that we just can't be explained. We hear it more often ascribed to women. Having, they could lift a car to protect a baby or whatever.
Right.
And men absolutely have their own strength. And we're learning as a society that sensitivity is a strength.
Ought to be.
I think so.
Vulnerability is a strength.
Right.
No, I mean, we ought to be more accepting of that.
I think we're learning that we're getting to the center of that. But I guess what I mean is we're just seeing a different version of how a woman can display strength in the most dire of situations.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up sensitivity and we chatted about vulnerability, and I think I have finally gotten through an episode without speaking about those things directly. So
I would talk about them all the time with you, Mike. I truly, it's such a blessing to have you as my co-host with this, because I don't have to convince you about that stuff. So it's awesome.
No, how else are you going to accept feedback and learn if you're not vulnerable to feedback and your weaknesses, so that you can get better?
I get it, though. It's tough. We're all on that journey to getting there to accept it. So, And I will say, the sooner as an actor that you can be less afraid of how that looks on you, the better you can perform like Penny Gerald Johnson did. So
good.
Penny Johnson-Gerald.
Penny Johnson-Gerald. So we have her,
Yep.
and then we had Mark Jackson playing Isaac.
Uh-huh.
Now he's behind a mask. And he has two eyes that we learned are only there for aesthetics that don't really emote, although they do seem to emote based on just maybe a little bit of different brightness levels and things like that.
I guess I haven't even noticed that. Yeah, totally.
But one of the things that I've been taught in interpersonal communication is that words only account for about 7% of communication. Tone is much more, about 38%. So you can hear, from the tone of somebody's, upset or whatever, just it communicates more. And then body language is much more in the 55% range. So what does Mark have to work with when he's playing Isaac? He's got words. There's not a lot of tonal shifts that he has. And there's very sort of limited robot body language.
Yeah.
And that's it. However, I'm thinking specifically of the scene where Marcus was helping fight back against the attack of space zombies. And this race was never given a name, so I'm just going to call them space zombies or space cannibals. Sure. They were repelling that attack, and Isaac was saying things like, "Wait, hold your shot. Mm-hmm. Good job. Better. Mm-hmm. Well done." And you could hear this mentoring and this encouragement and this support with no tone, with no real body language, and like just the words. But it was such to me, a remarkable and believable moment where he was providing the boy with positive feedback, mm-hmm. with giving him confidence, constructive criticism, instruction, mm-hmm. mentoring. And I really have to owe that to the words come from the writers, right? But then there's also the embodiment of those words that Mark Jackson brought to that role that I think was just incredible in ways that I really have a hard time even conceiving of.
Yeah, I'm gonna fully agree with you. I think the constriction that he has in order to illustrate his point, which we know, you're right, is on the page. That is a particularly wonderful point example of how he manages to, with nuance, get across his nurturing for Marcus in that moment. I also think too, editing is part of that, because a lot of what he does have to work with is, I'm not discluding the acting and voice acting ability and all that at all. I am saying though that the timing is also what he has to work with as an actor, and the editors did a good job to give us there's so much that can be done with what angle we're looking at somebody and where they're looking at us and what side of the camera they enter from and all those things. There's a lot of unconscious clues that can tell us how a character is supposed to make us feel. And so that scene was so wonderfully put together on all fronts that we really did go, wow, he's taking care of that child.
Yes. So as a team, I think that's the bottom line. Writers, direction, editing, and Mark's acting really, really brought that to life.
Fully.
Very, very well. And he learned so much, and he sort of played it off later. He was like, I just adjusted my programming to deal with the experience with the boys. But he starts off by leaving them with a handgun at home by themselves. Uh-huh. Not a great parenting tip for those out there. Mission Log the Orville does not encourage. We do not encourage that as a parenting technique, even if it does increase their odds of survival by 24%. But he went from that to taking the boys with them to look for was it Dysonium?
Yeah.
Not dilithium, Dysonium, so they have to look for that. And also complimented Marcus on not being as intellectually stunted as he thought he was. So that's
so funny.
That's a compliment. And the story, I really thought the story was that could have been a good recap also. Family went on a vacation. Their ship crashed. The mother was separated, and they don't know whether she's living or dead. The end.
The end. Oh.
But
there's so much to appreciate about this episode. I'm sorry I cut you off.
No, it is, and we can definitely see that the Isaac character evolving.
Yeah.
And I think we didn't necessarily see Dr. Claire evolve, but we did learn more about her, which is great. And if we look at this, we're 8 episodes in. So let's just go down the list. We've had an Ed episode with Gordon. We had a Kelly episode. We had
Ed and Kelly.
We had
actually, I'm sorry. That was Alaris.
Yeah. We had an Alara episode. We had a Bortus episode.
Uh-huh.
We had an Isaac and Claire episode. We had, I don't know if we want to call Majority Rules a John Lamar episode.
I would say that's right.
Sure. Is that everybody?
It's everybody now. I think now we have set the stage perfectly for us to really care about these characters on the next journey that we go with them.
I think that is a lesson that other shows, maybe directly or indirectly tied to the Star Trek universe, could learn from.
Sure, I could see that, and I think we're noticing it because we are set to the task of looking and examining at this show. I'm sure other shows do it without us realizing it. And also, we have a huge cast here. So, like a huge, wonderfully diverse and incredibly talented cast. So, because we had the opportunity to get to know each actor and character intimately in order to set the stage for future episodes, we're just kind of seeing the pattern for as it is. So, I'm all for you encouraging it in other shows. It just may be happening without us realizing it.
Alrighty, I'll keep my eye open.
Hey, you ready to get to the next segment?
I am ready to get to the next segment.
I'll see you there.
All right.
We have come to the part of this show where we're going to explore the bigger ideas in the episode into the fold, as well as the messages, morals, and meanings, and we're going to see if they align with the Roddenberry Star Trek philosophy. Are you ready, Mike?
I am ready.
Okay, so we need to talk about glory holes.
Sure.
No, I'm just joking.
Well, we'll get to that maybe here in a little bit. But so we had basically 3 plots going on, right? I think in Next Gen and most modern we'll say like Berman era Star Trek.
Sure.
Berman era Star Trek, there's kind of like an A plot and a B plot.
Uh-huh.
This one, there's kind of an A plot and a B plot and a C plot. And I watch other, modern dramedies, and sometimes there's like, all the way down to like E and F.
Sure.
Or G and H,
Sure.
maybe even Omicron. I don't know. Like lots of plots.
No, don't say it.
Lots of plots. So we had basically an A-B. We had Isaac and the kids. We had Claire. Originally, I had Claire and Drogen, but he was only part of it. But we had the Claire plot of her trying to get back.
Yes.
And then we had the Orville and the glory hole,
yes.
which is how I put it, or the spatial fold, as we say.
As everyone else besides Gordon says, yes.
Yeah, that was some funny stuff. I laughed out loud. So I want to talk a little bit about Isaac's sort of growth, or even just like adapting his technique for protecting the children. He left the kids to go look for Claire, to go look for the other half of the shuttle, and left them with a weapon, like we said. And then he came back and he saved the kids. Or Marcus was kind of trying unsuccessfully to defend the shuttle, and Isaac was able to shoot the defender kind of from behind.
Yeah, because he returned just in time for that.
Yeah. And then they realized they had to go on a hike to go look for some Dysonium, and so he brought the kids with him. Made sure they got rest, made sure they, the biological units needed a rest period, so they waited till the morning. So he's learning and adapting to the needs of the kiddos. Love the way he ended the video argument, man. I tell you what, it takes a village, and maybe mom had a little bit too much, empathy, or a little bit too much of a soft spot for, the boy traveling in a shuttle and not wanting to be bored. But Isaac just took care of that. And then instantly he went from disciplinarian to protector, because the space zombie showed up right then, and they wanted the boys, and he said, "They are under my protection. You may not have them." Which was great. So I really liked seeing Isaac adapt and sort of modify his, line of thinking, his protocol, his binary code, if you will, his protocol, as the story evolved, and I think that was great.
What do you think that the message is there then, or like what are you taking away from that?
Improvise, adapt, overcome, learn as you go, learn from your experience, assess the situation, see how you're doing.
Because he definitely says to Claire right at the top, your methods are ineffective.
But look at the first thing he did, or maybe not the first thing he did, but at one point he tried to emulate her
after thinking he was doing the right thing. He'd had 2 attempts.
He said, "I swear to God, if I have to come back there," so he just basically copied her, realized it wasn't working, and then I think when he realized it wasn't working, he tried maybe some different things. So
so that was the moment for me
reevaluate.
That was the moment for me when he realized I actually don't know how to stop these children from being this way, and
probably had some empathy for Claire at that point too. Yeah. So kind of a dual thing. Had some empathy for her and how hard it is, and then also was able to, adapt and try some different things. So I think that was definitely something that he was able to, learn along the way, to be a protector and a teacher and a mentor. like all to those boys, and to provide them support and discipline and accountability. So I think Isaac really showed all of those things during his mini arc during this episode.
Totally. And you know, bearing in mind that we're talking about an artificial intelligent life form, someone shouldn't have to go through a life or death experience in order to learn these things. And he really is learning these things under duress. And he really does lord over Claire that he has a superior take on how she should be handling her life and her son's. So in one way, again, it's like a bad example of how we should learn how to have empathy for others. But it is really nice to see an example of growth.
It is. And, you know, I just wanted to discuss artificial intelligence, manufactured intelligence, sentience. Isaac he's intelligent. I mean, he comes from a race of, you know, what he calls artificial life forms or artificial intelligent. And they said he was stamped out of the factory when they were discussing how Mocklin babies are made. That they all come out of the central foundry or something that he said. But the intelligence is real. Just the life form is artificial. So he does refer to himself as artificial intelligence and an artificial life form. And I wonder how accurate that really is. When the intelligence is real, I don't think it matters. And I think we're going to get to a point possibly in our lifetime where it's indistinguishable whether it's, you know, artificially manufactured or, actually manufactured intelligence or biological intelligence.
Yeah, we are definitely not anybody to say what is nature and what is not, too. But I guess all I mean is, like, as a human example of, like, oh, look, the robot learned. We as humans could do better to just take someone at face value and not try to sit in their shoes before trying to tell them how they should live their life.
Absolutely, and I think that is exactly true, whether or not it's Isaac or Claire.
Yeah. Yes. Right. Because she also has her prejudices against him for lording over the fact that you're a superior being. I'm not being you know.
Sure. So he had his prejudice that he was more intelligent than the human, and she had her prejudice that he was what you referred to him as a talking hubcap, walking hubcap, talking and walking hubcap, some sort of hubcap. So they each had their prejudices, and I think they learned, which is a super big Star Trek message. Not to cut to the chase, but you know, gaining that mutual understanding, where at first you don't have that understanding because people fear what they don't understand, right? You know, and right now that's just about everything. And then between, you know, at the beginning of this episode, I think it was definitely those two.
They also had a definitely common ground by the end of it, for sure.
They did. So, can we talk about Trojan and his?
Can we?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think we should. I think you're right.
So he drags Claire away. I can only imagine if there were Claire and the kids and Isaac there.
Yeah,
maybe not Isaac. You know, would he have dragged all of them away and kept them in a safe place? But he didn't. So he just has Claire there, and he gives her the rundown, which seems to be true. It does appear that there was a war, right? There was kind of a bombed out, you know, buildings and you know, decayed things, and there was poisoned water. So it looks like it was the truth. He tells her it's a safe place. You know, he's feeding her. I don't know. I just, one side, the line, "I am your only hope for survival," just made me cringe. That line has been a psychological weapon probably ever since one person was trying to control other people. It's a way to manipulate, control, make somebody feel helpless, make somebody feel that the only option that they have is to put all of their faith and all of their loyalty to that one person. And when I heard that, I just cringed, and I loved that all she did was try to fight back. I mean, at first she tried to reason and appeal. That didn't work. And then she tried to escape. And then ultimately that ended with the, the fight. and the stabbing and the shooting. So let's just kind of start at the beginning. Did you feel like he was a protector, a captor, just a lonely guy trying to,
His
get out there? His
intentions are so ambiguous, Mike.
Yeah.
And we did need her to say, you're saying this is a safe space, but this is not how I'm being made to feel. And so it's helpful that she says that on its face because, psychologically, women do want to trust men. And sometimes if we fight back or point out something that doesn't make us feel safe, it will only make us feel less safe, or men will take that out on us. There is a whole episode we could spend on how women don't stand up to men and why they hadn't for years, because it only had negative repercussions when someone that it could go from all the way to losing a job to losing your life when you stand up against a man. And so really what's interesting is, in defiance of that and being his captive, she does stand up to him, and that could result in loss of life for her, or or sexual assault or what have you. We have no idea what this man's intention is. And sometimes there is like a toxic masculinity where it's like, I must protect. I saw a weak woman, or I'm going to obviously, I can go all over the board with this. And again, I'm talking about like a subsect of men who believe that like men are superior to women, and not all men feel that way. That they're supposed to be the man in the relationship, supposed to be the man to save the woman, or it's harder to be a man than it is to be a woman. And so we don't know what their, if they're patriarchy, matriarchy, misogynistic or not. But yes, you're right that there's like psychological manipulation going on. It's almost like he's trying to make Stockholm syndrome happen with her.
Yes.
As well.
Yes, very much so. I do like that she ramped things up from trying to reason and appeal to trying to escape and get her communicator back. Do you think she had to kill him?
I think absolutely.
Okay.
Here's why. Because at first, I'm like, oh, overkill much, Claire. He's downed, Women... a self-defense class I was taking from a woman in the FBI. Women don't use weapons or items in their house when there's like a breaking and entering that could protect them, because out of fear or like fight and flight and all those things. If someone is attacking us, we have every right in our wheelhouse to fight back and make sure we're not even going to be chased down. Like if that guy can run after her, he could chase her down and stuff like that.
Right.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, if I rewind that statement a little bit, the FBI woman that was teaching the self-defense class, she goes, I've gone into crime scenes where women are killed, and I could see that she should have grabbed the lamp to say, hit him with, or like she sees that several different ways that this woman, had she only just like had a clarity of mind to protect herself, could have done better in the situation. And it's not victim blaming. It's just how sad that that's like where we're at. And Claire's obviously trained past a point where she can, the fear didn't cripple her in that. And so she was able, she had to basically, I don't know if she killed him. She might not have killed him, but she definitely stopped him. And she had to. She had no other choice. This man was not able to be reasoned with. She did all the things that someone should do that she didn't even have to do. She was already a captive. Captive. And she did all that she could in order to survive, only to save her children. She wasn't even worried about her life if not for the children. Truly.
Yes, I agree with that 100%. And I think that was the, when we move on a little bit, her willingness to fight for her kids and her need to do that is definitely in the very fabric of this show. So she fights back. She is able to. I think she killed him. I think she went center mass with that handgun, which was, seemed to be a pistol that shot a bullet or something similar to it. It was a projectile weapon, and she took him out. And I think her training and her instincts required her to use lethal force there. And then she did kill one. She killed a space zombie on the way out too.
Yes.
On the way out to the kids, and she did take a blood sample, which had the benefit of not only saving Ty, eventually, hopefully, but also that maybe they could use on the space zombies if the Planetary Union sends a ship back and they're willing to accept the help.
Yes, right.
So you got to have the word is they have to be they have to allow
amenable?
The help. Amenable, yes, we'll go with that. Amenable to the help. Yeah, open to the help. And Ed took a couple of risks in this episode that were big too in his arc. So we talked about Isaac, we talked about Claire. Ed's decision to abandon the upgrade and proceed with a compromised, actually with zero nav system, to go after the Finns and Isaac, and enter the glory hole and take the risk of crashing into something. Why weren't we talking about this during the funny part? We keep adding that into your now.
We needed to balance
transition
out the heavy stuff
because
that
we
we're
didn't
talking about.
we didn't need to jump right into that. We had to
We did the right thing here.
We had to phase that in. Anyway, they entered the glory hole, and the downside to it that Kelly pointed out was we don't know where that goes. That could go into a sun, it can go into a star, it can go into a planet. And he said, well, space is mostly empty, so let's just take a chance. So there's two kind of things, in risk management that I'm taught, which is you have to look at probability. So the versus severity. So the probability of coming out of this spatial fold into a planetary mass or a sun or something like that, the probability is very low. But the severity, if you were to do that, is very high, right? Like it would kill them all.
Yes.
If they materialized inside solid rock or inside a sun or something like that. And Ed very quickly weighed those two options and the importance of saving his people and said, well, it's a chance we got to take. And
I think the children...
It worked out.
I think the children upped the stakes as well. Though, if we're thinking about it, there are plenty of children on the Orville as well.
Probably a lot of single people too, Jessica.
Which we have to save. Because honestly, as a single person, I understand.
Yeah, no, I get it too. So speaking of that was kind of a what I think is a very Star Trek message. A lot of people would like to argue with me, and I'd love to sit down and talk about it. So please hit us up in the comments or hit us up on Twitter. The needs of the one or the needs of the few outweigh the needs of the many.
And that's a Star Trek direct quote, right? Isn't it?
That is.
I thought it's the opposite.
The opposite is more often quoted at the end of Star Trek III, The Search for Spock. Spock, after he experienced the rejoining, the Tal Forpan from the Vulcan High Priestess, Spock walked by Kirk and said, "My father says you came back for me." And Kirk said, "Yes." And Spock said, "Why would you do that?" And Kirk said, "Because the needs of the one outweigh the needs of the many." Which was totally flipped on its head from Star Trek II, where the reason Spock sacrificed himself was because the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, or the one. But both of those things are equally valid. And it depends on who's doing the sacrificing and who's making the decision. So let's say a boat is out in the middle of the ocean, a couple of hundred years ago, and there's no wind for weeks. And the sailors feel like if they throw somebody overboard, which was the superstition at the time, then the winds would kick up. And in that case, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one.
Sure.
Kind of a dick move, right? We haven't talked about Captain Dick Move in a couple of weeks, but
we haven't.
We'll roll him back into the show.
He's here now.
Very
for the
much
glory
a dick
hole.
move. So that's the needs. That is one sort of bastardization of the needs of the many outweighing the needs of the one. A better example of the needs of the many outweighing the needs of the one would be something like what Spock did at the end of Star Trek II, sacrificing himself to save the Enterprise.
You have to do that. You have to do that.
So that makes sense. But let's talk a little bit more about the needs of the one outweighing the needs of the many. Those are things like firefighters rushing into a burning building to save one person. That's things like a whole team of people going down into a well to save a baby that maybe fell down into the well, and they're putting themselves at great danger. That's Saving Private Ryan, right? That's soldiers, taking on a dangerous mission to bring Private Ryan, home to his mother because his 3 brothers were killed, and they didn't want to leave this poor woman childless. So the needs of the one outweighing the needs of the many is a valid thing that people do to sacrifice, and that message does have a place in the Star Trek universe. It is often overlooked by the more commonly quoted, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, but it goes both ways.
Yes.
And I think that's why Star Treks 2 and 3 complemented each other so well.
I think you really surmised that well. The other way I look at it, Mike, is would you rather be in love with a hero or a villain? A hero will let you die to save the world, but a villain will let the world die to save you. So, it's a real good argument for toxic relationships, if you ask me.
Yeah, it sure is.
But you're totally right. Like, it's the trolley problem, right? And it's hard to say at any given time what the right answer is. But 9 times out of 10, making a decision is the right decision. Also.
I think you're right. I loved the conversation that Claire had with Marcus when he said, "Mom, the last thing I said to you was," I don't know what he said, "you suck."
Yeah.
Or
that's what he said. Basically, it's not the last thing he said, but he definitely said, as opposed to "I love you, Mom," it was "you suck, Mom," which, nothing was worse in my family than when I said, we were just not allowed to say "you suck." That was one of the meanest things we could have said.
Still, as much as it's become socially acceptable, still not one of my faves. I think there's more ways to better articulate yourself. But I did love that she was like, hey, we say things when we're angry that we don't mean, right? We say things when we're angry that we don't mean. And she wanted to say very much that I get it. Like, you said something when you were angry. I didn't take it personally. I know you still love me. I still love you. Don't sweat it at all. And that's just sort of her being Mama Bear. It reminded me. Did you ever watch Weeds with?
I didn't. No.
Oh, you did. Mary Louise Parker, young widow. Husband kind of left her with. I guess he was young, right? Nobody had life insurance when they were young and stuff like that, and they had a big mortgage and those kind of things, and a nice house. So she ends up selling. You guessed it, weed.
Got it.
And this was kind of like pre-legalized weed and stuff like that. I think the show was like mid to late 2000s. But eventually, as Mary Louise Parker's character developed, she ended up marrying a drug cartel kingpin played by Demjan Bashir. And she said to him, "Don't mess with Mama Bear. Mama Bears are different. You think being a father is the same thing. It's not. Don't mess with Mama Bear." And that was very much, I was reminded of that very much in this episode.
Totally. I think one of the first things I took away when I initially watched the episode is, first of all, Dr. Claire has kids. No idea that she had children.
Same.
And it's just such a natural fitting. She's so, you just get her family dynamic right off the bat. And what the Orville, I think, did, and it wasn't the whole episode, and it wasn't what it was all about, but they had a really awesome, they used their opportunity to dash our society's stereotype against the black mother, single black mother. And we saw a woman who chose to be a mother who happens to be black and is raising her 2 black sons the best damn way she can. And, you know, it is storytelling like that. And again, we talked about how, you know, About a Girl is not perfect. But this storytelling, it's not about her being her skin color, but we are getting the opportunity to dash stereotypes that are not helpful to our society. And
they're good. I mean, they're very tropish in their behavior, right? The kids just being, you know, kind of misbehaving and fighting with each other and stuff like that. I mean, we've seen that on TV, you know, a million times.
Kids are going to kid no matter what kind of kid they are.
But they're good kids, and I have said this many, many, many times, and I will continue to say it many, 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 many more times. When I was a kid watching Star Trek, I saw people that looked like me, aspiring me to do things, or inspiring me to do things.
No, they aspired to be you. I got
my
it.
Life. Yeah, right, sure. Inspiring me to do things, you know, with my life. Just flat out inspiring me to do things. Now I get to see people that don't look like me, seeing people in Star Trek on the Orville, who look like them, inspiring them to do things and inspiring them. And I think that is awesome, and it makes me very, very, very proud of my fandom.
Well, and let's add just this one extra thought to that. It's important for you to see those stories, too.
Yes.
I forget what the phenomenon is, but if we are only getting shown the same stories and that they're of, you know, white men over and over again, our society begins to believe that those are what are only important. So it not only, because I was represented in so many things, maybe not always in a leadership role, or maybe like 2 women were against each other, so it taught me to be competitive with women. But the more I'm looking at inclusion on screen and also making sure the works I work on are inclusive and diverse, the more I'm learning about myself and others, and how to and that it's important that other people's stories are told as well.
Good point. You know, probably maybe a minor point, but I saw it in here, was understanding the ravages of war. I think when we first saw the space vampires, I'm sorry, not the space vampires, the space zombies.
different.
Yes, there you go. That's different. The space zombies
cannibals
on this episode. Space cannibal zombies, which I guess zombies are cannibals.
Zombies, yes.
Yeah. We probably thought maybe they were sort of primitive. I don't really know. But then we saw that skyline of the apartment buildings or the office buildings. It looked eerily similar to 3 buildings on the north side of the city where I live.
Oh, weird.
And yes, very, very much. So we can see that the ravages of war are more than... It could take down a modern society as well and kind of put them back to the Stone Age. And that's scary, right? That's us.
Yeah.
That's us, you know, in kind of a World War III scenario. So definitely because every alien culture we see on these shows has some sort of metaphor that we can learn from.
I mean, we definitely have the people that are preparing for World War III right now. And
he was a prepper. He just happened to be right.
That's the thing is, like, some of those preppers can be crazy and go, I am the savior of this. So perhaps that's like what we're dealing with this guy is like, I knew it. I was right. You know.
Yep. Well, and you know, recognize when somebody's trying to control you and fighting back. His line, "I am your only hope," that is kind of like, I alone can do it. You have to rely on me. Just lines that have been used by cult leaders and dictators forever. That's why I think it was so cringy for me. And when he said, "There's no surviving out there, nothing survives out there. I am your only hope." If she had lost all hope except in him, then maybe she's not trying to escape. She's not trying to fight back. But I think she recognized that I've got to fight back. I've got to try to find my kids. And this guy is trying to control me, and I need to fight back against that. So I think that was a good, meaning, moral message as well. Yeah,
you're totally right. There's, again, this what we get out of this episode, in that we don't want that with not having too much comedy. We really get we're faced with some interesting, heavy storytelling that I appreciated out of this episode for sure.
I definitely did too, and I still see this show, you know, evolving. And the more I dig dig into the show, the more layers there are. Every time I peel back a layer of the onion, there's another one there and another one and another one. And I think we can keep going. But I think we're at the time where we need to talk about whether this episode aligned with the Roddenberry Star Trek philosophy. And if so, why and or why not?
Well, I'm going to say what I always say, no.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Of course it does. This is an episode right out of Star Trek, I think.
It is. It's I'm a little bit torn on this one just with a couple of the contradictions.
Yes, fair.
Because Claire did kill Drojan, and I think that was she had to do that. She also killed one of the space zombies on the way out. And could have.
And it was her only weapon, by the way.
Yeah, could have shot to the kneecap have worked. Could something like that. You do that, you miss, and now you got a zombie right on top of you. So, she did portray that to her son that even though they may not value life, we do. So, if that's the way she felt, and she killed anyway, then I think it must not have been their only choice. And let's face it, there were episodes of Star Trek where things get killed.
Yeah.
Right? Where intelligent entities get killed. As much as, if people say that Kirk had a reputation of, shooting first and asking questions later, I would invite them to go back and rewatch Star Trek, the original series, and the motion picture, and Star Trek 2, and it's not really until we get heavily into Harv Bennett Captain Kirk in Star Trek's 2 and 3 and 4 and later that we kind of get the cowboyification of James T. Kirk. The salt vampire got killed right off the bat in the Man Trap, but you know what he didn't kill? The Gorn. You know what he didn't kill was the Romulan ship. Didn't destroy that. Offered them a chance to come aboard. They self-destructed. Didn't kill the Kelvins by any other name. Had them dead to rights. Said that we could work together and they could help them reach their galaxy. So there was much more opportunities in the original series to where who you thought was your enemy in the beginning, you then came with a way to understand and then work together and collaborate for what was best for both parties. And that happened far more often than just killing the bad guy. So this episode, we killed a couple of bad guys, but I think Dr. Finn was able to get a blood sample and fashion a vaccine or a cure and save many more people.
Sure.
So that's a little that's a little twist on things. And I think the reasonable person would argue that self-defense is a valid defense. And
especially as a woman in that situation, I think she really, the second you question what you should do, that was pretty much so. I think I forgot to mention this with the woman who taught the self-defense class. The second if you go, I don't know if I should do this, you have given your person that's attacking you an opportunity to take advantage of that. So I don't know that she had much time to go, I shouldn't be killing these people.
Yeah.
But you bring up a good point, though, because we have seen examples of them killing a lot, and then being gleeful about it or whatever.
There's a lot of killing in this show, and I think that's something that we need to recognize.
I think keeping an eye on it too with this show in particular is interesting.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot more Star Trek in the show than there's not. But going back to Old Wounds, and I give you all the credit in the world for pointing this out. When we were having fun with the Happy Arbor Day versus You Got Wood, and how funny that was, you were like, hey, let's not forget a bunch of people just died on that cruel ship. And, at the time I was kind of like, yeah, but no, not yeah, but yeah.
Yeah.
You were exactly right. John Lamar's line of, boom bitch during If the Stars Should Appear, when, it was funny. We laughed. We played off of it, back and forth during the recap and afterwards, but that's a lot of killing involved there. And I pulled up that clip on on YouTube just to watch it. It was just a 40-second clip. It's got like 24,000 views. It's got 309 upvotes and 0 downvotes. So very, very popular. Some of the comments were things like, that's exactly how I would react. One reason why the Orville is so good, the crew members act like normal people. We've talked about that. The characters are super relatable.
Yes.
And the humor helps with that. Another viewer put, my favorite scene from the series. You always expect this kind of reaction, but they never do it. Somebody else wrote, just watched this last night. It's the exact feeling anyone that plays Xbox, PlayStation, etc. So glad someone had it up so I could show a fellow worker how awesome this show actually is. And the show is good, and it's funny. But if we are equating, ending the life of somebody to, Xbox and PlayStation, that's dangerous, and it's kind of scary, and it's something we need to keep an eye on. And maybe it's just a place where our society is now.
This is definitely a bigger topic for another episode, but there definitely is desensitization that is happening when it comes to gun wielding and murdering, for sure. And again, it's a comedy, so it can be taken with a grain of salt. But you're totally right to point it out. Like, if she didn't say we still value human life, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. So,
right.
You're right to kind of go, okay, you're showing us one thing and you're doing another.
Yes, because I do think and I will say Star Trek up to and including about 1991, that there's almost always another way found. And you point out that sometimes it's Deus Ex Machina. Sometimes that godlike being shows up and sort of ends the conflict so that nobody can do anything, whether it be the Organians or the Metrones or somebody like that. But on the other hand, they find a way to sort of, preserve the lives. And they're not really doing that in this show. And I think that's just honestly, I think it's just more a sign of the times, sadly.
I believe it. But again, if you have a responsibility as an artist to create the world that you want to see and reflect us back. So we're not seeing that there's much negative to that. But you're totally right to talk about it, and I'm glad you did.
Well, thank you.
I think we did it. Did we do it, Mike?
We did it. You want to bring us home?
Yeah, I'm going to do it. Mission Log, The Orville is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment. Executive producer is Rod Roddenberry. Our website and your opportunity to comment and connect with us is podcast.roddenberry.com.
Join us next time on Mission Log, The Orville as we discuss Cupid's Dagger.
This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.